You are young, gifted, and black. We must begin to tell our young. There's a world waiting for you. Yours is the quest that has just begun. These are the wise and ground-shaking words of a man who made many more of the same sort. A man whose actions and words sparked a flame in the hearts of every soul that they reached. A man who devoted his whole life and being to inspire the black community who are enduring inconceivable injustices. A man that served in some of the highest offices in the NAACP and the U.S. Consul across seas, and used his platform to promote a better mindset in life for the African American community. When others looked away from the harsh treatments, he stepped up and made a change. On December 6, 1865, Congress ratified the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery in the United States. This was only part of three amendments, 13, 14, and 15, that were installed as a result of the end of the Civil War. This ignited the start of a short-lived period known as Reconstruction that was geared in bringing past slaves into society and providing them with their rights. While this was a monumental occurrence, it did not mean that African Americans would have an easy road ahead of them. Newly freed blacks had hard times finding jobs and getting into society as individual southern states ruled by Democrats passed laws to try and prevent blacks from having freedoms. Secret societies of Southerners started to develop with the mission of striking fear and getting rid of blacks that were gaining rights. This caused African Americans in the South to live in fear of violence and desperate rural poverty with harsh conditions. This was a hard Reconstruction time for African Americans. Through this struggle, some African Americans found ways to achieve good jobs and living. Johnson's mother, Helen Louise Dillette, was born in Nassau, Bahamas, and father James Johnson was born in Richmond, Virginia. The parents met in New York and got married. In his autobiography, Johnson states that Jacksonville was known far and wide as a good town for Negroes. This was due to the hotel and resort jobs available. The next year, the couple moved there, and James William Johnson was born on June 17, 1871, to a father that served many years as a head waiter of the St. James Luxury Hotel in Jacksonville, Florida, and his mother that taught at the Old Stanton School and was the first black female teacher in Florida. The Stanton School was a school for young African American boys and girls that was established by the Freedmen's Bureau. This middle-class, stable environment of La Villa provided James and his brother John with an exposure to literature, art, and music due to their mother's influence. Growing up, Johnson attended the school that his mother taught at and excelled in all his classes. Graduating Stanton School at the age of 16 in 1887, Johnson then attended Atlanta University, that's now known as Clark. He later graduated and in 1894 went back home to become the principal of Stanton at a price of $75 per month. Craving to do something for the black community, in 1895 Johnson started a newspaper called the Daily American. He used this to address issues that blacks were facing and encourage a self-help and knowledge attitude for the black community. This newspaper only ran a year due to financial problems and ridicule from the public. However, this journalistic effort was not a failure in that it got the attention of activists by the names of W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. After this, Johnson explored the world of law, studying with white lawyer Thomas A. Ledwith. This interest later resulted in Johnson earning admission to the Florida State Bar. In 1897, his brother, John Rosamond, graduated from the New England Conservatory of Music and returned to Jacksonville, Florida. Rosamond and Johnson wrote many songs and poetry together, and one of them being the creation of the song Lift Every Voice and Sing in 1900 to honor Abraham Lincoln's birthday. This song eventually inspired the entire black community across the country, and later the NAACP dubbed it the official Negro National Anthem. On May 3, 1901, a monstrous fire rampaged through the streets of Jacksonville, destroying more than 150 blocks of the city, including the Stanton School. Now called the Great Fire, it is still the largest metropolitan fire to ever occur in the South. In the same year, Johnson avoided almost being lynched by white militiamen who thought that he was meeting with a white woman. In 1902, Johnson and his brother left Jacksonville for New York to pursue songwriting on Broadway and had much success writing for many well-known shows and artists. Johnson's poetry and Rosamond's musical ability, with the addition of Bob Cole, was a perfect combination of talent. While in New York, Johnson also met his future wife, Grace Nail. In 1906, Theodore Roosevelt appointed him the U.S. Consul to Puerto Cabello, Venezuela. This was because of influence and a push from Booker T. Washington, who noticed his outstanding character. He then moved to Nicaragua in 1909 because it was a more important post. Johnson received high praise in this consul position because of his mature handling and aiding with U.S. Marines in 1912 due to a rebel revolution. Though he had great success, he decided to resign due to the newly elected Democratic administration of Woodrow Wilson. Johnson resumed to his literary passion and in 1912 published his first novel, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man. He returned to NYC in 1914 and began a weekly column for a black newspaper named The New York Age. In 1917, Johnson accepted a position at the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP. He started as a field secretary. His job was to increase the number of NAACP branches in the South. He helped increase membership from 10,000 to 44,000 by the end of 1918. This success led him to being named the first black Secretary-in-Chief of Operations for the NAACP. Johnson was deeply committed to exposing the injustice and brutality imposed on African Americans throughout the United States, especially in the Jim Crow South. He spent a numerous amount of time in D.C. lobbying to have Congress pass the dire anti-lynching bill, legislation that would have made lynching a federal crime. Johnson worked closely with such noted attorneys as Moorfield Story, Lewis Marshall, and Arthur Garfield Hayes in a series of cases defending the African American civil rights and attacking the legal structure of segregation. Throughout all of this, he still had an impact on the literary side of things. He was a major endorser of young writers and poets who were highlighting the struggles and hardships that African Americans face and mentored and aided them in every way he could. Two of these men were Langston Hughes and Claude McKay, who are known as some of the most inspirational figures of the Harlem Renaissance, which was a spark of literature, art, and culture in the black community. He published many pieces of writings and songs, such as the Book of American Negro Poetry in 1922. The dire anti-lynching bill was passed by the House of Representatives in 1922, but was stopped by Southern senators. To this day, an anti-lynching bill has never been passed, as over time the Senate saw it as superfluous. In 1927, there was a reissuing of the Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man that gained much more attention. In the same year, an adaptation of African American religion was written by Johnson called God's Trombones. And in 1930, Johnson published Black Manhattan, which was the first historical account of African Americans in New York City. In 1931, Johnson stepped down as the secretary of the NAACP and accepted the chair position of creative writing in African American and American literature at Fisk University, earning a salary of $5,000 a year. He published his biography Along This Way in 1933. For the next 4 years, Johnson was invited to lecture and share his knowledge at some of the top schools in the country, including Yale, NYU, Northwestern, and the University of North Carolina. Johnson had an unexpected and tragic death due to a car accident hitting him and his wife on June 26, 1938. Though Johnson endured all of the threats and dangers of the Jim Crow era, he still never yielded and always chased for the next best thing and improvement for society. He once said, "My inner life is mine, and I shall defend and maintain its integrity against all the powers of hell." Johnson was one of many figures that would come after him in the dismantling of the system of hate, discrimination, and segregation that blacks endured every day of their lives. It is through the efforts and sacrifices of these brave men and women that blacks have the hopes, dreams, and most importantly, the ability to achieve anything that we set our minds to, even being the President of the United States. You are young, gifted, and black. We must begin to tell our children, there's a world waiting for you. Yours is the quest that's just begun.